Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Regenerative Business Podcast. We're doing like a late night edition. So it is it is 8 p.m. here, which is not when I ever do anything because I'm in Hawaii and I'm usually doing stuff more at like 5 a.m. So this might have a special late night vibe. I'm looking forward to it. And it's because I have a very special guest on today who is currently slow traveling around Europe, and we had to accommodate her because I'm so excited
Mm.
about the topic for today, which is about using, I didn't even like come up with a line for this. Oh, it's gonna be so good, you guys. And it has to do with new feminine economy using day trading. I don't I'm like afraid to even like say the word and scare people away. But Erin West is here from Humans Who Trade, and I am learning trading from her. I am just being blown away by her whole methodology and the deep potential for women to separate themselves from patriarchal confines of our
Mm.
capitalist or exploitative capitalist economy and be able to create a new feminine economy. So, welcome, Erin. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here with you.
Ugh. So, let's just start with your story because you have such a good story. So, I'm just gonna like prompt you
Mm.
with that.
Okay. Yes, let's start there. In my past life, so to speak, I was uh, a mom, still am a mom to two young kids. I was a lawyer, practiced intellectual property law for a long time. I was in a long marriage, and I was living on this island outside of Seattle in the US. And um, it just became clear to me that I needed to shift that relationship. I needed to end that marriage after all that time. And so it took me a long time to get to the place where I could, and I did. And I sort of had this vision in my mind of how it would go at that point. There would be sort of a my husband and I would share time with the kids together, and that would be it. And we would continue our lives where they were. And that's not what happened. So, shortly after I shared the desire to dissolve the marriage, I learned from my husband that he was going to be moving across the country. And so, in that moment, I became a full time single mom, which I had not contemplated at all. And so I was sort of staring down two paths. On the one side, I saw that I could continue practicing law. I would very likely have to be away 10 to 12 hours a day, every day from my kids. And so I'd have to outsource a lot of that parenting to keep things going. And something inside of me really objected to that in a really serious way. And so somehow I closed that door. I just, something inside, I was like, no, I'm not doing it. And I had no other option, nothing. I mean, I had nothing at all. And so I decided to sell the house. I sold the car. I sold a lot of objects, but I had a storage unit. I put everything in storage, and my kids and I each had a carry-on suitcase, and we moved to Oaxaca, Mexico, one-way ticket. I had this moment where I was closing my storage unit door and I realized I had no keys. It was like such a moment of being untethered because the storage unit had a padlock. So, I had no house key, I had no car key, I had no office key, all of these keys that I had had before. And so we went to Oaxaca, and in that time, or shortly during in this transition, I came across trading. And again, I was a word person through and through. I was a writer, I was a lawyer, I was always a reader, and synthesizing that in the written word. And the world of finance was not my world. I thought it was, for one, boring, right? I mean, I had been around many people in finance in that part of my life, and it just never really resonated with me. I mean, I did the correct things. I did the long-term investing. I was investing in my IRA and in college, That it just, there was no hook or spark. And yet somehow I heard someone speak and there was some spark inside of me. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do this because first of all, I really need a diversion. Like this divorce is so intense emotionally that I just need something that I can sink myself into. And so I started learning how to trade, and it didn't take me very long until I was like, oh, this is something, right? Not only was it intellectually interesting and stimulating for me, it was working, which kind of blew my mind. I was like, whoa, okay, I can, I had to learn how to do it. I took beginner classes, advanced classes. I had a trading coach for a long time. I sort of poured myself into it because I was fascinated. And I couldn't, coming from the world of law where you bill your time in 6 minute increments, I had to account for my days in 6 minute increments. And every single trade that I took that was profitable, I would do the math and I would think, I would have had to have billed 25 hours to make this, like 20, billing 25 hours is not the same as being at work for 25 hours. You always have to build in some more padding as a lawyer. And I just spent, in the early days, maybe I'd be spending 30 minutes or an hour on a trade. And it just like, it was such it was really mind blowing. Right. And so I kept learning, I kept doing this. And then as I kept going and spent more time, so the way that I trade is technical trading. So you're just looking at patterns, right? It's not like corporate analysis and accounting and that sort of thing. And I realized that there were these sort of, I was also on a very much in a spiritual initiation at that time as well. And I realized that there were these patterns in the charts, in the way that stocks moved, that mimicked and mirrored these other patterns that we all experience as humans. And so that sort of took it to the next level for me. And I was like, whoa, there is so much depth here that I had never heard about. And so that's sort of how I started doing it. And so then I was with my kids in Oaxaca and we started traveling elsewhere in the world. And I'm in Paris right now, but during that time, we spent an extended period in Paris, and the market opens. The US markets here open at 3:30. And it was this magical time in my life when I had this incredible um, nanny, and she would come for 5 hours in the morning. I'd spend a few hours with my kids. She'd come for 5 hours. I would just go do whatever I wanted in Paris for that long. And then I'd come back, an hour before the market opened, connect with my kids and start trading and like trade and make dinner. And it, it was truly beyond like what I conceived of as possible for life for me. And so then that's kind of how it happened. And I kept going and I eventually came back to the States for a bit. Now 3 years. Now I'm gone again because it's not the best fit for me at the moment. And my friends back in the States who are working, sort of, professional jobs, working a lot, very demanding on top of their caretaking activities, whether for pets or parents or kids, are saying, when are you going to teach us this? Because I'm sitting here looking at your Instagram feed as you are traveling all over the world, and I'm here on Zoom all day having meetings. And when will you teach us? And I resisted for a long time uh, until, part of my past during this time was really coming back to my body. I had really lived most of my life in a very dissociated state, so I could be hyper disciplined and hyper achievement oriented. And I felt at some point this flicker, this somatic flicker that was like, yes. And 4 days later, I sent out the first video for the course that became Humans Who Trade. And I had 18 people sign up. And the big surprise was for me that like it was like soul work to teach this. I mean, it's primarily women who do take and took that first round, but it was soul work. Like I realized this is essential for women in this era. And here I am back in Paris. It feels a little bit like a full circle moment.
Oh, I love that so much. So, I mean, a bunch of questions that I have for you from that, but before I ask those, I really just want you to define what even trading is.
Mm. What is trading?
And like
Yes.
specifically the kind of trading you're talking about.
Yeah. So it's funny. Trading, just in general, a very general definition would be buying and selling a financial asset, or sometimes people will call it an instrument. And that's it, trading, right? And so you can trade with stocks or equities. You can trade currency. You can trade commodities like oil or even orange juice. And so there are all sorts of, you can trade crypto. That's another instrument. I don't personally trade crypto, but I have several students who use the method that I teach in humans who trade for crypto. And so that's all trading is, right? And so there's an element of trading also that is a shorter time frame than buy and hold, right? So most of us in our retirement accounts, we just buy it once. Like a lot of us will buy SPY, right? So that just mimics the S&P 500, and you buy SPY and you literally hold it for 30 or 40 years, right? So that eventually you will get out of that trade. But when we say trading, we're talking about a shorter frame of time. And then the question might be, well, how short? So you use the term day trader. I don't think of myself as a day trader, but what day trading means is you enter and exit the trade in the same day, right? And so I teach and mostly trade what's called swing trading. So you enter a trade and then you exit it between 2 days and a few weeks later. And so the question might be, why do you trade? And so the big difference here versus just long-term investing is when are you able to access your gain? Right. So trading is more like current term income versus retirement investing or buy and hold, right? You're looking at keeping that and building this, balloon of principal that you can eventually live off of. And if you're lucky, not even have to touch, right? So the income is much deferred with that kind of investing. So I think of that as investing
Yeah.
versus trading is like near term, enter, exit, profit.
Hmm. Hmm. And so with that, I mean, we have to talk about redefining retirement, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
like,
Because
because
yeah.
yeah, most people get into buying stocks or funds for retirement, as you said. And so they're doing that long haul. I'm going to buy it now and never, ever, ever touch it, essentially. Or in 20,
Mm,
30, 40 plus years, I'll touch it. Or like maybe that's a tax deference tactic. But with this, you brought up retirement, and I'm curious, how do you see this displacing or redefining retirement?
mm. Yeah, so I think that we have a sort of very black and white view of retirement that we have all been told, right? So it's like you're going to work for 3 to 4 decades and you're going to diligently contribute to your retirement account during that time. And then at this one moment, when you're 62 and a half or 65 or 67,
Or 59
all
and
of
a
a sudden you stop. Yeah, 59 and a half, right? All of a sudden you stop working, you never work a day in your life again, and you just do not your days are wide open and you live off of the proceeds or the whatever you're making off of what you've saved. And uh I see this as, for me, this is the ultimate um sovereignty tool and flexibility tool, really, because once you learn how to trade, right? Um, you can use it at any point. So I actually have had several people come to me and say, look, I'm ready for a soft retirement. I
Mm,
don't want to stop working fully, but I am tired.
hmm.
I especially right around 60, I notice this happens. I noticed it in my parents, but in others, like physically something seems to shift where you're like, I don't have it in me anymore to go into the office and do that whole cycle every day, 5 days a week. And so a in that sort of liminal phase, if what if you were to take a small portion of your retirement, let the rest keep going and trade with that and generate income in this liminal period? And what if, in a larger sense, that I think of it as a cliff, that cliff where you have to have all the money by this date, and then you're never going to add any money again. What if that just dissolves? Right? Like, what if? I mean, the amount that we are expected to get in our retirement accounts, for me, are sort of, it's a low bar. I mean, 5 to 8 to maybe 10% is considered really good on average. And often I or traders, in my circle will make 20, 60, 100% return on a single trade. And so again, it matters what amount of money you're talking about with how much you're trading with. Like that's relevant to the calculus, but it's a game changer. And just to have this tool, I don't understand why this is not a companion tool to long-term buy and hold. Right. I don't get it.
So you
Um,
guys, we're going to be spiraling around and swinging back and forth because I can't help it, around these more like actual definitions of like trading and stuff and some more high level energetic stuff. From talking with you or like honestly like listening to your videos, Erin, it's like it is all over interwoven, but I think it's useful to see like how does this actually impact our 3D reality, especially
yeah.
as entrepreneurs or business owners who either you're in the beginning stages when your time and your money are so connected, or even later on when your time and money is so
Hmm.
interconnected, or you're scaling up and like still unless you are selling your company or you've completely outsourced and systematized your entire business, like you are in some way connected in with how money is coming into that business.
Hmm.
And it's just so interesting to think of this completely alternative way that money can come in, not from a corporate job, not from an inheritance, not from even like any connection with other humans at all. I think it's so
Hmm.
interesting because at least in my head, and I was talking with you before we hit record of like having this kind of like, oh shit moment this week around touching so closer with money and how it actually when you get that close, it actually separates it from time and it separates it from any like dollars per hour in any or like number of people buying or number of sales or any quantity at all.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, that untethering from this belief that I think all of us, just by existing in the culture that we exist in, it's so tightly woven, which is that there is a connection between effort and money.
Mhm.
And and in fact, this is one of the big reveals in the ways that trading for me has so much been like holding up a mirror, right? Is to say, sorry, excuse me, but trading is so much like holding up a mirror to show me and us our deepest beliefs around money,
Mm.
and so much more than that. And so one of these beliefs, like I'm saying, is that we have to effort, we have to expend effort and energy to earn money. And if we don't, it is very interesting to see what happens on a nervous system and a subconscious level. I mean, I have been doing this for a long time now. And even for me, I have to continue doing that work. A lot of us do this mindset work, subconscious work, energetic work in business. And then there's a certain way that it's so bare and naked with trading because there is no buffer between you and the money. You are like inside the money. You're right there with your hands just in it. And it's like, how much capacity do I have to receive? I still do spend 15 minutes for most trades or less. Doesn't matter how much I'm trading with. So my trading is far more regulated by my capacity to receive that for 15 minutes than anything else.
So to be clear, you are completely covering you and your family's needs and then some just by trading 15 minutes a day.
So 15 minutes a trade for one. And so it fluctuates. So I have multiple sources of income. Obviously, I have my company, I have other investments as well. But I could, and at times it has, right? So I have multiple sources.
Hmm.
And it really for me is is a is a personal choice Like there are times it's cyclical, right? Where I'm really in it and I'm trading a lot and it's creating large amounts of income. And then there are times when I'm focused elsewhere, right? Like where more of my energy is in, in the business side of things, because that's what feels aligned then.
Hmm.
Or last year I had a pretty serious family emergency and I was trading much less, right? And so for me, that's the power is that unlike so many things, you don't have to come back every day. You don't have to do it the same amount every day, every month, day in and day out, this way that, you talk a lot about in your work, like the effects of industrialization, the effects of sameness,
Hmm.
right? It's not here. It's really like elective. When do I need it? And once you have the skill, you have it.
Hmm. So one thing that I two things that I feel like you get asked all the time that I just want to like bring up in this beginning portion is what about people's hesitation around putting money into shitty companies? And then like
Mm.
how much money are we talking about, Erin? I'm gonna force you to answer that question even though I know that you don't like answering it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so um that I mean that first question is ultimately a really personal question, right? And I don't I'll tell you my point of view on it, but I
Yeah.
think that that's one that's really important, that someone really sits with themselves and is not pushing themselves into a place where it just doesn't feel aligned. But the way that I look at it, and this is a topic that comes up a lot in humans who trade, so is that when I think of buy and hold and investing, right? Like you are putting money in, I don't know, Tesla or Apple, right? And you are investing X number of shares in that, and you're just going to let it run for the next 10, 20, 30 years. From that perspective, you're buying a share in the company. And the trade is to get that part of that percentage ownership. You're giving them money, and they can do whatever they want with that, right? Like they can invest that and expand their business. And so in that way, I feel like it's a real stamp of approval. Like, yes, I agree with your business model. I agree what you're doing out in the world, and I want to support that. And I trust you to do that in whatever way you see fit. Versus the way that I and my students have tended to look at it is that trading, because it's a short-term endeavor, what it really is, it's like surfing the flow of energy, right? If you're in a trade for 2 days, I mean, you're in out, right? Like you're like surfing that wave, you're surfing the swell, and right as you feel it that it's breaking, you're out, right? And so in that way, it's not this long-term contribution to that company to go and do what they want. And so that that feels like an important distinction for me is and it is very very aligned also with what it actually means to trade in the way that we trade. And frankly, it's not even just how we trade, it's how traders trade. Like it is known that you are highly sensitive to the energetic flows of what is happening, and that's what you're acting on. And there's actually a big, I realized this just by trading. And then I stumbled onto this big body of research that's all about this topic, where it's like, absolutely, how sensitive is your body, is your soma to the energy in the market? And do you act on those cues? And those traders, like they did it, there's a study on the London Stock Exchange, and the ones that could sense their somatic signals the fastest and acted on them were the most profitable. And they also were the most experienced. All of that lined up.
How did they study that?
They they asked them to push a button when they heard their heartbeat. And so they saw that the ones who were the most accurate and the fastest, and then they tracked all of their trading profits
Mm.
while they were trading. And so that's what they found. And what was really interesting also is that they found that it didn't matter how confident or not they were, that meta level of whether they were confident that they heard the beat, like the correct number of beats when they were happening, was irrelevant. That was not statistically significant. It was simply like, did they hear it? Were they attuned thematically?
Mm.
Which is fascinating to me because if you go on YouTube, you will see, I mean, you can go on YouTube and there's so much information about trading. There's so many ways to learn how to trade, right? You can go on YouTube, you can go on Investopedia, and you can learn different ways and metrics, but it's all technical. It's
Mm,
all knowledge based. It's
mm,
this way that we can have in this current world where we just want more and more and more information.
mm,
And yet, there was another study where they gave people a trading setup, right? Like a pattern to follow that was profitable something like 95% of the time if you executed it perfectly. And they said, go trade this. And I believe it was 19 people. They said, come back in a year. Let's see how profitable you were. And one was profitable,
Did they follow the
which,
formula?
well, here's the thing. That's why trading, I say it's 51% of the subtle energetic aspect.
Mm,
But in reality, I think it's far closer to 80%. And
mm,
it's because there's such a nervous system element, there's such a somatic element, such a subconscious belief element in it that is not talked about. And yet the research, as I'm telling you, indicates very clearly in the very best traders, this is what's happening, right?
mm,
Anyone can learn the technicals. Anyone. Just takes time,
mm,
right? But can you attune to yourself? Can you stick with the entry and exit numbers that you came to in your clear-headed analysis? What happens to you when you're in the flow of energy?
mm,
I mean, I think of myself sometimes, I'm not a great surfer. I like doing it, but I am not great. And so I can think of these times when I just get completely tossed by a wave and be under the water. And when you open your eyes, if you actually open your eyes and you see the way that the water is moving, what are you doing when you're under the water, right? Are you in fight or flight? Or are you like, hey, this passes, right? This passes. I come up, I do it again. And that's what happens is that people will start shifting their numbers. Oh, I'm gonna just let it go down. I know it's gonna come back up eventually. It's totally gonna come back up. And so that's the thing that is really going on.
So to continue on with the surfing analogy, I once learned how to surf many years ago before I got fed up with surfers not being so chill and like the whole etiquette thing, not into it.
Heard that.
But I would go out with my husband, who was a professional surfer at one time in his
Mm.
life, and he would be like, "Oh yeah, you see the swell coming?" And he'd like point out into the ocean and be like, "I don't see anything. What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
He's like pointing out into the ocean. Yeah, you see that swell coming? And I
Yeah.
feel like that's where like, is it psychic? Is it intuition? Or is it just like that pattern recognition? Is it just having
Hmm.
enough experience to know what to look for?
Hmm. Yeah. And and so I think everything that you just said, it's all of that in
Hmm.
trading,
Hmm.
right? I think it's once you learn any technical method, it's about repetition and it's about this deep synthesis that happens when you're exposed to something many times. And I think one of the things that makes this is not a female particular trait, but this is a trait that women can tend to have that's very refined is this attunement to others. Like if we're in a caretaking role, whether it's children, whether it's pets, whether it's even our partner, right? Like this attunement when you're around someone enough and you realize, oh, like something, there's this subtlety, and I'm recognizing that that means something. That skill is very transferable to trading,
Hmm.
right? Like these minor nuances in movement and motion and energetics is the kind of thing that eventually, right, once you do it more, you're like, oh, that's what I'm acting on, right? And
Hmm.
so that level of attunement is highly transferable. And I think we were talking before, but there are studies that suggest that women are more profitable trading and they trade less often.
Hmm.
And and I take this as being related to what I just said. Like we are in a certain way, whether it's biological, whether we have been enculturated that way, there is can be this way that we really attune to those around us. I mean, even if you're like a plant person, you're very much attuning to the plant and these like subtle changes, and that translates.
So how does this relate to the new feminine economy? And like, can you define that for us?
Yeah, I it's something that I feel like is. I think for me, what I see is this old way of being is actively crumbling. And and right in the rubble, I see this other way coming forth and emerging. And I think that I think tenants, it's something, it's something that I see you doing even in your work, but is this return to the physical realm, right? The material realm, not as in material goods that we're producing in the
Yeah.
industrialized commodity, but like the physical body, or you know, in your work, like the body of the earth, right? Like that there, this is a center point that we come back to for information, um, for wisdom, for you talking about the cycles of regenerative agriculture and how we can borrow from that from business. The same with our own bodies. I mean, the way I teach trading is the key is here,
Yeah.
right? Like this, it's not this, it's this, it's the
And for
body.
people
And so
listening, she's pointing to her heart and saying not her head, her heart or body. Maybe
thank
it
you.
wasn't just heart.
All of that,
Yeah.
right? I think, yeah, I think the heart and the overall body, this as the sense of knowledge and knowing and wisdom, right? Versus this way that we've been where everyone else outside of us has the answers,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everything and everyone else has the answers, but we don't.
Mm-hmm.
And what if we already have all the answers? I mean, between the earth and between our own bodies, like that is a source of knowledge, wisdom, and direction. I see as being huge. So it's been hard for so many of us to access that, right? Dissociation, leaving our bodies, has been essential for so many of us, as the patriarchy is essentially addicted to women's free labor,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, the valuation, using a minimum wage valuation of women's unpaid work, this particular Oxfam study was in 2020, was $10.9 trillion a year, 3 times as big as the global tech industry. That is what we have been absorbing, right? Both in paid work, and of course, we're getting paid much less. And then also, and not even to mention, women of color is like beyond, right? And then when you tack on the unpaid invisible labor, um, how else do you survive? You have to dissociate. You have to numb. If you're doing, I mean, you're doing that year after year after year. And so I think that the first big shift of the new feminine economy is returning to our bodies so we can feel ourselves, so we can access our knowing and our wisdom that we have always had, but has frankly not been celebrated. And so I think that that is a really big one. I think another one is um, decoupling earning money, like we were talking about, from working hours. Like
Mm-hmm.
we are at capacity. The amount of autoimmune disease in women, insomnia, like all of the chronic disease is so much higher in women. Right? Our bodies are keeping the score. Our bodies are saying it's too much. If we need, we know we all need more money. We know that this is the world we live in, and that women need more money, and that in a way equals freedom. But there's a really big tension there, because what do we do if we physically can't work more, right? If it's an either or proposition. And so we have to be stepping into ways, right? Which is what, in a way, there are ways we can do this with entrepreneurship, but we have to be stepping into ways where we decouple the number of hours we're working from making money. We
Mm-hmm.
have to be making money while we sleep.
So I just want to scoot back to your original story. Because usually what I feel like most of the time what I see happen if someone's like coming from a corporate situation and coming into entrepreneurship is they're just taking their work habits from corporate and just
Yeah.
like setting it on top of their entrepreneurship. And it actually is really like they have to put in the work with their body, with their mind, and all of that to actually separate it out. And it can take a lot of time unless they're being incredibly intentional about it. But in your story, you're like, I was working 12 plus hours a day as a lawyer. And then the next month, essentially, I am moving to Oaxaca and like happen to find day trading or swing trading. See, I'm gonna get this, right?
Yeah, you're doing
Technical
it.
trading. Um,
Hmm.
and you're slow traveling around the world. What do you think was the moment where like, was there a tension there? Was it like enough is enough? Like, what was that opening for you to actually be able to do it? Because I see a lot of people not being able to just do that.
That's such a great question. I think it was almost one of the first times in my life where I had gotten, I think, quiet enough internally that I could hear this very quiet but firm no,
Mm,
no, not that. And it was rare enough for me to have heard something like that, right? Because I was such a disciplined, outwardly focused person. I thought, okay, um, I need to heed this. And I happened to be in this major transition moment in my life, the threshold, literally standing in the threshold of all of that life behind me and this blank slate in front of me. And it was something, to be honest, from beyond that pushed me to do that because I had no plan, none. I mean,
mhm,
sure, I could always have gone back to law, um, but I knew that that wasn't the answer for me. And
mhm,
so it really felt like stepping off a cliff into the unknown. And and I had to have some level of trust there, right? Which I hadn't had before. I was always a you make your own luck kind of person.
mhm,
Excuse me. And so I just stepped off and I
mhm,
trusted. And
mhm.
there is that moment. I think we all know, and any of us who have done that, when you're like, I really hope things come in. I'm not seeing anything right now. Like it's not clear to me. And that void, that emptiness, is edgy. And yet somehow things just kept coming in. Like trading came in. Trading, it made no sense. It does not make any
Well,
sense in my life
did
narrative.
you have examples of people who were doing it that you trusted, or was that again just like kind of following a thread?
No, I had no example. And in fact, none. And in fact, in the world that I was in, people I knew from college who were working on Wall Street,
Mm-hmm.
some in banking, some in trading, there was a very pejorative view of people who tried to trade on their own, right? And
Mm,
so, in fact, that was the only real data point I had
of it being like
is that,
risky and
yeah, and there's this sort of ethos of like, sweated through button downs and fist pumps and yellow Lamborghinis and just this kind of like slick culture around, like I said, I think of myself as a slow trader, but like around day trading, of this sort of thing. So if anything, it was a bit like, uh, no, I don't know about that. And yet I felt a yes. I mean, that's kind of what I had committed to myself, to be honest, is that after my marriage, I said, okay, I have to just go with what's happening internally. Like I can't be crafting the perfect external resume. I can't be doing the things that I should be doing to be a good wife, a good mother, a good employee. Like I, I surrender. I have to do the things that I'm getting this internal messaging from,
Mhm.
no matter how inconvenient that is, no matter if that means moving to another country, having no viable source of income for a time. Like I have to.
Mhm. Mm. So good. Oh, I don't even know where we came from with that one. I was just wondering that earlier of like, man, that's like such a like a switch over. Oh, okay. So we were talking about entrepreneurship and in I'm gonna hop again, but I was thinking for people like me with like
Mhm.
a lot of energy, a lot of creative flow, and I've met similar people where a tendency can be like when things are going good, like when they get boring, when they're like, what's the next project? What's the next thing to work on? And it can actually be like, I'm just going to either burn it all down, start a new business, tweak something that's totally working because like,
Mhm.
so I was like, thinking of like, oh, this is actually like a really amazing thing to hyper fixate on.
Mhm.
As an
Yeah.
entrepreneur to like be like, oh, this is another thing that's like feeding, that's like a fun thing to learn, an interesting thing to learn. It's still in like for some entrepreneurs where like the money aspect of it is like can be really fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it can actually prevent you from like messing with a perfectly well-functioning business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I see it. I have a lot of entrepreneurs, coaches, healers in Humans Who Trade. And I think that for me, it's a wonderful companion
Mm,
because there are a lot of the similar energetics which you're speaking to. And you can come to it and really dive in, and then you can also hit pause,
yeah.
right? And so it kind of can ebb and flow with you. And if you're that kind of personality that you just described, it's also fun, right? It's like lifting to this veil to this whole world, and you're like, whoa,
Hmm.
there are patterns here. Like, oh, let me find this pattern. Let me do this. Like, not only is it fun and playful, I often tell my students that it gets to be fun. Like,
Hmm.
let it be playful. Like, money doesn't all have to be this serious thing. Um, I love that. And it's so flexible,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it's like
And so,
I feel like that applies, but it almost like not it doesn't butt heads with, but like the other side of this is something I've heard you say is you get to wait for it to come to you. And it's such like a receivership versus like a pushing. So like how do you see
mhm.
them alchemize? Can you explain that and like say how they alchemize to you?
Yeah. One of the things that I love about trading is it reminds me of integrating energies. So when we're entering a trade, if we want to think of it in like the yin yang continue, like dynamic, when you're entering a trade, it's very much a like yang energy, right? It's like penetrative action, leaping. You have to leap,
Hmm.
right? And so that might mirror for us, like what are the ways that we engage with life? Do we dive in, right? And so for some people, that's going to be easy.
Yeah.
You dive in, right? But then you wait. Like you do that initial amount of work and then you wait for the trade. And again, it doesn't always go your way, but it often does. And so you're just waiting. There's nothing for you to do. In fact, if you do something, it could actually reduce your profit. And so then it's all automated at that point. So then you get out and then you wait more because you do your analysis for the next trade and you find this ideal price, right? That's the right place to get in. And you just wait for it to come to you. And so again, that is more that receivership model, more of the yin model, where we're like waiting for something to come to us. And then, as female body people have the capacity to then alchemize two cells into 35 trillion cells in 280 days. It's very similar in that way, like after that initial leap. And so there is a lot of waiting for the actual trades, but I have the same elements that you're talking about. And so that's when I will just go, I trade in my sim account, that's the account that you have imaginary money. And so if I feel myself being like, oh, I really want to get into a trade, which is not the right mindset to have, because when you're reaching, you're like, I'll take anything just so I can be in a trade and have that dopamine release. No, that's the moment when you're like, okay, honey, move to your sim account, move to your play money
Is
right
this
now
like
and do
epic
that.
dating advice for people? Is this like simulated dating for people?
Yeah, right. Or go learn a new financial instrument or go chart a few new stocks so that you have something to do and you're keeping yourself busy. But the real play, like remembering that those studies that suggest that women make more trading less
Hmm.
have absolutely found that to be true. You lose money over trading, right? And so there are ways to work with it. But it's just that awareness, like, oh, I feel that in myself right now. I want to get in a trade. Well, is there an excellent trade? That's the real question. So yeah, it's a real dance, I think, between those energies of waiting and receiving and leaping and taking action,
Hmm. Hmm.
which I really appreciate.
So to before we fully close this off, I really want to give people an idea of like how much money we're talking about. Like, is this something that it's like playing with like a few $100s? Is it if someone actually wanted to live off of it, what numbers are we playing with? You don't have to
Mm,
answer, but like I think that people like
yeah.
I think it's actually less money than like you don't have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to like start playing with this
Oh,
process.
no. No, no, no. So, okay, so let me see if I can break it down. And it's more helpful to talk about it in terms of percentage, but I can try to give some actual numbers. So, for one, just to break it down, it really depends what you're trading.
Hmm.
Okay, so in my Learn to Trade class, which is Humans Who Trade, I teach that via trading with shares of stock, right? And so for that, it's a funny thing. You actually need a little bit more because shares are more expensive than other kinds of assets that you can trade to make a material amount. So again, everyone's monthly expenses vary so much. So it's really hard to tell. But you could supplement your income with like ten to $25,000 if you're trading with shares. You could supplement them. If you wanted to live off of it, there are people who are living off of it, but you're probably going to need, to be honest, more in the $50,000 to $100,000 range. And what I want you to hear here is if you're trading with shares, right? Um, if you're trading options and futures, which is what I teach in my advanced class, expanded, the calculus really changes. For example, um, you need $1,300 to trade this. There's one futures trade that I like to do that you need $1,300 to trade, and it is really common to make 30 to 100% of that back. So you can see right there that, you know, if let's just use an easy number. If you were trading with $5,000 of that particular trade, let's just settle on 50% of that trade. So you could add $2,500 in income by only borrowing $5,000 from yourself. And it could be higher, right? There are times when I'll make 100% off of a futures trade, and it could be lower too. And I want to be, of course, I think hopefully everyone's hearing this. You don't win on every trade. I want to be really clear. Like loss is part of the game for everyone. It's just, is your net positive, right? So I'm not saying you're not making this every single time you take a trade. Sometimes there's always the X factor. And so yeah, you can with futures, it's really powerful, right? Like even if you have 1,300, I mean, again, everyone's in different situations, but there are some of my students who like to a person who works in the holistic bodywork field and somatic experiencing and doesn't want to have to work for a corporate health organization and want to be able to fund their health insurance premiums in the US. And you could do that with $1,300 invested. Like that's kind of mind blowing. A few $100s a month can be a big thing as well. So yeah, I think with futures, five or $10,000 it can make a big difference if you're wanting to be making in the thousands of dollars range. And then I have students who are trading with in the hundreds and in six figures as well. Some people are fully replacing their income. Some people are supplementing. Some people are just really thrilled to feel like an insider and to understand the system that they have been told has no regularity and that's totally random, which is false. Or else why else would there be Wall Street? I mean, do we really think that Wall Street's just gambling? No, but it's empowering, right? To be like, I, I, I see this. Like the veil has been lifted, and I understand how this works. Like that's its own level of empowerment.
My dog is barking over here. I don't know if you can hear like play happening, but I love this idea of for myself, I feel more safe when there's more options available. So
Hmm.
so like that's kind of why I got into entrepreneurship because I felt like I had more options. I could be the one
Yeah.
chill out, dude. No, she's not going to. It's fine. Cute little dog over here. But there's also like okay, if you're expanding your business, if you're newer to business, if you're whatever it is, there's different stages where suddenly you can be putting so much pressure on your business to produce for
Yes.
you. And
Yeah.
that can be so stifling for like the soul of your business or the creative
Hmm.
energy flowing through your business. And just to have something like this, it doesn't have to be swing trading, but having other
Yeah.
channels to actually have money flow into your life and your business can actually, or into your life can actually make it so your business flourishes faster because there's not this pressure on it.
Hmm.
That's my
I
opinion.
100%, I 100% agree. That is my own personal experience. And I also think that the converse is true with trading. That if trading is the only thing that you do, I mean, because effectively trading is entrepreneurship, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what it is. It's just very lean. And so I would say the same is true, that I have seen that people, um, I think there's more overall flourishing when
Mm,
trading is used as a companion with other things. Now, like I said, I have students who that's their sole thing and that works for them and they've dialed it in. But I see a lot of others who love to marry it with something else because for exactly the reason you're saying. There's less pressure on each of them.
And then you're not like second guessing the trade that you already decided to take, right?
Yeah, because it feels like do or die, right? And I love it. Even like even a trade a month, right? If you're taking a trade a month, and I talked about futures, right? And it's pretty easy and common to make 10% on a trade, like I just said. But if you're doing 10% a month, you're doubling your money in 10 months.
Hmm.
And that's a pretty low return for futures. And that's once you learned how to trade, maybe you invested 15 to 30 minutes in that.
Yeah. Well, that was like the
So
thing
that,
that was like blowing my mind. You like share this like little spreadsheet of like, okay, if you make 1% profit per day and you're not like pulling it out, what that becomes in a couple years and then a few years, it's like
yeah,
2000 becomes millions. Just like what the actual fuck at 1% per day. So I loved that. And like
yeah,
one other like comment that you didn't say in here that I felt really important when you were talking about the like the how much part is you you're like, well, not every trade is a win, but you also
yeah,
are like you actually only need to win, quote unquote, win 30% in order to break even, which is
yeah. And
E
that's a big
and F.
adjustment for people, right? Is that the way that I teach it, you only have to have 3 out of 10 trades be profitable, right? So if you just stick to the method and really approach it from the perspective of base hits versus like, I really need to knock this trade out of the park, it's just a different mindset than what we're all used to if you've been in conventional education,
Yeah.
right? If you get 1 point off, right? I mean, depending on the test, you're freaking out, right? Like a single red mark on your paper, it's like, oh my goodness, this has a material effect on my grade, which what effect does that have in your life? I mean, it depends. But here, you could lose 7 out of 10 times and be profitable. And again, with that ratio, you're not going to be wildly profitable, but you're still profitable, right? If you replicate that, you're still making money. And so, of course, you would like to increase that, right? The number of times that you're profitable per trade. But that's it for, overall. But that's a big adjustment. Like
Yeah.
you, it kind of invites us, what I see a lot, especially with women in my class, it invites us to work with these elements of perfectionism that a lot of us have been carrying for a long time. Like, what happens if it's imperfect? Like, wait, I can still make money and be imperfect?
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of
That
like
can be a bit new.
you hear all of these really successful humans who they will pitch their now they're like super best-selling authors and like super well known and you hear like oh they were rejected from 20 plus different PhD programs and
Mhm.
they just kept going and then they like got a PhD or like oh they pitched 46 different publishers for their book and then it was like
Yeah.
finally accepted and it's like how can you be okay with failure? Realizing that like
Yeah.
it sometimes is really like you just need the one or you just need the 3 out of 10, right?
Yeah. It's big. I mean, there's definitely some work on the inner level there, I think, for people that I see.
Hmm.
And can we make it not mean anything about us personally?
Yeah.
Right? Can it just be like, oh yeah, that trade didn't work out?
Hmm. Ugh.
Hmm.
Oh, well, Erin, this was so good. I'm like, it's
Mm,
bedtime for me. So I
yes,
definitely want to
it's
have you back
late.
on and talk about all these other things in my like outline that I wanted to ask you about, but my brain is shutting down.
Yeah,
The red
it's
lights
time
are
for
like out
sleep.
here. And you can
Yeah,
like go drink your
sleep.
coffee and go about your day. But for people who
Yeah.
want to go deeper with you, find you online, they're curious about humans who trade, where do they find you? What are some things they can go and do with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on my website, erinwest.co. You could find me on Instagram. I am Erin West. And if you want to just see what it feels like to take your first trade with me using imaginary money, just to see what it's like, you can comment sovereign on any of my posts, and I will send you a link to my free Take Your First Trade masterclass, and that's also on my website. So see what it feels like. Maybe you'll have a flicker.
Hmm, love it. Do you have any closing wisdom for people who are listening right now?
I think just to plant the seed that it doesn't have to be hard.
Mm,
Is one of the things that I talk about a lot in Humans Who Trade. And we are all so conditioned to expect that, we hold that in our body that in so many ways that it has to be hard. And just to imagine, like, what if it got to be easier?
mhm,
What if it gets to be easier? And like, what would shift in your life if there wasn't an expectation of efforting or challenge or struggle? What
mhm.
if it were more elective, right? Rather than the default?
Ugh. Just go follow Erin on Instagram and watch her stories of her traveling around the world trading, and you can kind of like soak up those vibes.
Yeah, I would love to have you. Thanks for having me, Sam. Such a fun chat.
It was so fun.